Revealed, how a brave nurse and her daughter's amazing act saved a mafia boss tied to train tracks. Emily Harper's heart raced as she stepped out of the hospital and into the chill of the evening air. This was meant to be a quiet night, a rare moment to step away from the relentless demands of her nursing life. Yet there, in the dark alleyway, the coarse sound of a distant train whistle twisted the unease festering in her stomach. She had just treated patients for 12 hours straight, but nothing had prepared her for the sight that awaited her: Vincent, the bull merino, tied to the train tracks, helpless and on the brink of death. "What are we even doing here?" Mia's frustrated voice cut through the bleakness. The rebellious 16-year-old had returned home like a tornado, appending Emily's carefully constructed life. Tension still simmered between them, years of misunderstandings colliding sharply against this single moment, a moment now tainted by the threat of violence and moral ruin. Emily's mind whirled. "We can't just leave him. He's a human being." Those words felt incongruous, like an invocation of some unspoken rule. The fear of the repercussions struck her hard. What kind of person risks everything for someone like him? As apprehension clawed at her insides, Mia's narrow gaze crystallized the moral dilemma at hand. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." "Now let's continue," panic echoed through Emily's mind. Whispers of the town's judgment crept closer. They could become collateral damage in a dangerous game they didn't choose to play. Even if she acted on pure instinct, what would saving a mafia boss mean for her reputation, her nursing career? The very fact that they were here pulled into this chaotic world was unthinkable. Mia's frustration morphed into something deeper, raw and wounded. "He's a monster, Mom. Look what he has done to our lives." Her words struck true in different ways, igniting the pain of lost time, bitter resentments, false hopes, and all the love that had turned to ash. Every rule they had built their lives around crumbled like a sandcastle, leaving only a gaping hole where their relationship once flourished. Emily hesitated, torn between the human instinct to save and the visceral understanding that preserving her own sanctity was crucial. In her heart, she knew this wasn't merely about Vincent. This was a fraught confrontation with her own past, one filled with secrets that could engulf them both. Was she willing to face the demons of her youth just to save a life that society deemed unworthy? As the train screeched tore through the night, the engine's lights pierced the darkness, illuminating Emily's decision. Anxiety coiled in her chest. A showdown loomed, accusations swirling from a town already predisposed to scorn them for even contemplating an act of mercy. Would nurturing the fragile bonds of humanity cost the one thing she held dearest? The tracks vibrated ominously beneath them, the wind howled a warning. As fate gathered its force, Emily and Mia stood at a precipice where the ghost of their shared history clawed at them both. Could love withstand the truth? Or would familial loyalty be devoured by the chaos of their choices? As the rumble of the approaching train echoed ominously, an unshakable question hung in the air: could they truly rise above their past, or would their fears trap them in an unending cycle of despair? The decision was an anchor pulling Emily deeper into an abyss of uncertainty. Behind her, the growl of the locomotive grew louder, a siren call that blurred the line between courage and foolishness. Mia's eyes burned with intensity, but it was the sheer terror in her gaze that finally galvanized Emily. In that split second, months of frustration, loss, and burgeoning rebellion melded into a singular purpose. "Stay here, Mia," she commanded, her tone inadvertently revealing the authority of a mother fueled by both fear and resolve. She approached the tracks with cautious steps, each one weighted by the judgment of all who knew her. Emily's hands shook slightly as she moved towards Vincent, this depraved man who had somehow woven both menace and need into the fabric of her life. As she drew closer, the distant headlamp of the train illuminated Vincent's face. He looked more vulnerable than the stories had led her to believe, his bravado stripped away by the imminent threat. A moment of internal conflict surged. Seeing him this way was disarming. Could he possibly be more than the monster Mia painted? "Vincent," she called, her voice almost lost in the cacophony of the approaching train. "I'm going to get you out." There was a pause, a fleeting moment where she questioned her own sanity. She was a nurse, but who had she chosen to aid? "Don't come any closer," he called back, his voice strained yet commanding. "You don't know what you're dealing with." The warning hung between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken truth and danger. "Neither do you." She shot back, feeling her resolve solidify even as the train thundered nearer. This was not just about Vincent. It was a reckoning, a confrontation with everything she had buried beneath the day-to-day pressures of her life, a stark confrontation with her own fears of inadequacy as both a mother and a caregiver. The train whistle blared, tearing through the night air, reverberating off the brick walls of the alley. A defining moment emerged. She had to act. The trembling fear was replaced by the icy sting of determination. Emily had spent her life saving lives, and if anything were to come of this situation, she would not abandon a soul in need. But the stakes deepened. Working as a nurse meant she had sworn an oath, a duty to care for the vulnerable, while grappling with the ethical dilemma of extending that care to someone society had judged unworthy. Her past with violence, shaped by upbringing and environment, flared in her mind. Would rescuing him shatter the fragile bond she had desperately been trying to mend with Mia? "Mom, please." Mia's cries sparked a harsh reality that cut through Emily's resolve. The pleas of her daughter, a life she had nurtured, reminded her of the urgency of their situation. "I can't," Emily murmured as she stepped back, the conflict unraveling inside her like a tight coil slowly loosening. Part of her knew the moral hazard she was tiptoeing around. Saving Vincent could invoke a ripple effect that would draw darkness back into their lives. Yet, as the train thundered closer, cutting the night with its piercing lights, she shifted her gaze from the tracks to her daughter. What were they becoming? Could they emerge unscathed during this moral quandary? In that moment of hesitation, Emily's focus shifted to a detail in her pocket, her stethoscope, a reminder of her calling and the lives she had saved. It represented her strength, her purpose. The idea of sacrifice sculpted by responsibility seized her. She glanced at Mia, who now wore fear while grappling with anger, a collision of youthful rebellion against a nurturing spirit. The choices loomed heavy, and sacrifice called. The time had come to face not just Vincent, but the reckoning of their fractured family unit itself. As the train raced toward its tragic fate, Emily made a choice that would redefine them. She would not yield easily to despair, but instead use this moment to reclaim their future. What would saving Vincent mean for their lives? Could one act of mercy mend the fractures within them, or would it break the fragile threads that still held them together? As the train's engines roared louder, a thunderous awakening brewed within Emily. Amidst the chaos of the train lights, she could see the flicker of potential, a bridge toward healing, a treacherous gamble against the darkness. With resolution surging, she leaned down to Vincent, an unexpected alliance forming between them in this maelstrom of life and death. But as she did, a disorienting realization washed over her. Perhaps saving him could unlock not just her past, but also the redemption she didn't even know she craved. And so the question emerged, screaming for attention as the train roared ever closer: would her actions forge a new narrative of love and reconciliation, or plunge them into deeper darkness? In the heart of the chaos, Emily steadied her breathing, caught between the deafening clatter of the oncoming train and the weight of decision pressing down on her chest. Time felt elastic, stretching into suffocating stillness as she willed herself to confront the truth she had long avoided. Vincent's life dangled precariously along with her own moral compass, swaying dangerously close to the edge of what felt right. "Get out of here!" Mia shouted, her voice cracking. Panic clawed at Emily's throne of resolve. She could not separate the two lives entwined in this moment, her duty as a caregiver and her instinct as a mother. Each role screamed for her attention with an urgency she had never anticipated, yet there was something about Vincent's vulnerability that challenged her perception. The train's lights flickered over his features, illuminating the lined face that carried stones of a troubled past, an enigma wrapped in the danger of the present. Somewhere beneath that hardened exterior, was there a flicker of the human she could save? The stethoscope in her pocket felt alive against her thigh, pulsing with the promise of healing. "Why are you doing this?" Vincent's strained voice broke through the cacophony, dragging her focus back to him. His eyes searched hers, a flicker of hope laced with fear, and she recognized a mirror of her own desperation. "I'm no one's hero. You're risking not just your life but your daughter's too." The decision sliced deeper into her gut. Was she a healer, or foolishly stepping into the fray? "You don't get to decide what I'm capable of," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Each word became a balancer on the tightrope she walked, between her own dark fears and the light of her commitment to humanity. The train's roar became an all-encompassing presence, drowning out her thoughts. They were all, in their own way, vulnerable figures caught in a cascading moment of fate. She could feel Mia's fear ricocheting off the walls of the alley, a poignant reminder of the stakes at hand. "I won't let you perish alone," she declared, the assertion tugging at the core of her identity. In this declaration, surrounded by impending doom, Emily felt an unexpected resolve crystallize. The battle wasn't merely for Vincent's salvation, it was also for her reclamation of self, an act defying both societal judgment and personal guilt. She moved closer to Vincent, disregarding the caution that urged her to retreat. The warmth of her determination ignited a purpose within her, more profound than the professional obligations she thought defined her. Healing was not only about the physical, it was about understanding the darkness that encircled each individual soul. "Why do you care about me?" Vincent asked, confusion mingling with gratitude. It was a question that pricked at Emily's very foundation. Care was what she was meant to extend, but the implications tangled in her mind, risking everything for someone deemed unworthy. "Because," she articulated slowly, "I know what it's like to be lost." With that shared vulnerability, Emily reached for him, closing the gap, a bridge not just across the tracks but between past and future. He shifted as if absorbing her words, struggling against the chains of his own making. Mia stepped closer, her expression teetering between fear and silent understanding. Perhaps this moment of reckoning served more than one purpose. The protection they sought was not merely against external threats, but the very labels that threatened to engulf them, the labels of unforgivable and beyond hope. Then, as the train roared forth, an epiphany struck. Each choice they faced would ripple through their lives, not defining them by the darkness but by the choices made under duress. The stakes were now clear. She could not save both the man and the futile expectations of a society that would leave him for dead. What mattered was the integrity of their choices in this critical heartbeat of time. But as Emily grasped Vincent's hand, she felt an incredible surge of strength coursing through her, breaking through every hesitation that had previously haunted her. In this moment of clarity, she saw an intersection of lives, hers entwined with Vincent's, and now, Mia's too. Could her gamble on redemption alter their trajectory? She had never envisioned that falling into darkness could lead to such poignant revelations. What would Mia think if they took this leap together? Would they emerge stronger, or redefine themselves in ways she could not anticipate? With each heartbeat synchronized with the pulsing rhythm of the train's approach, the path forward stood luminous yet uncertain. And as Emily prepared to pull both Vincent and Mia into the flickering light of hope, the gears of fate churned on a precipice, whispering a question that would shape their destinies. Could courage lead them to forge a new purpose, or would it become a reckoning that would tear them apart? Emily's grip on Vincent tightened as the train's threatening rumble crescendoed, her heart thundering in tandem with the roaring metal beast approaching, an overwhelming reminder of consequence and urgency. The heat from his hand was tangible, grounding her in this Herculean choice, but the flicker of fear still clouded her thoughts. With Mia watching, emotions swirled in a tempest around them, an inexplicable combination of trepidation and burgeoning determination. In that moment, Emily felt the weight of her dual roles crash together into a singular force. She was not just a caregiver or a mother, she was a protector, charged with shattering the chains that bound them not just to the tracks but to the judgment and expectations that threatened to define their lives. "Trust me," she said to Vincent, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You need to believe that this is possible." Would he accept the notion that he wasn't beyond saving? That there was still a flicker of hope left unlit within him, he met her gaze, the shadows of regret and skepticism battling for supremacy. "You don't understand who I am," he replied, desperation seeping through. "No one ever does." The tremor in his voice spoke volumes of his history, a story fraught with bad choices, lingering regrets, and the ugly scars of a life lived on the fringes. "I understand more than you realize," Emily challenged softly, her own heart racing as she sought resolve in the depths of his fear. "I've felt trapped, lost, overwhelmed by the weight of my decisions and their consequences. But right now, we have a chance to change everything." Mia's eyes, wide with uncertainty, shifted between her mother and Vincent, torn between fear and admiration. Watching this fragile but fierce exchange, she grasped the essence of bravery, not in a single heroic act but in the daily choice to stand firm against adversity, to risk everything for what felt morally right. As the train barreled closer, nearly drowning out her next words, Emily's instincts ignited. She pressed her other hand instinctively over her heart, as if to shield herself from the towering fears. "I want to let you do this alone," she urged. "Not now. Not ever." Vincent hesitated, the battle within him visible, and she could almost see the walls he built around himself shaking. He had lived too long in the shadow of his past, convinced that redemption was a treacherous mirage glimmering just beyond reach. Could she dispel that notion, ignite a belief that healing was indeed possible, not just for his life but for the lives entwined with his? "I am not the hero you want," Vincent finally murmured, his voice a mix of anguish and the faintest glimmer of a possibility she dared to cling to. "Then let me be yours," Emily responded, surprising even herself with the fierceness of her own conviction. "Let me take that step with you, so you don't have to bear the weight of it alone." At that moment, time stilled in its entirety, a paradox with the train fully bearing down on them, yet it felt like eternity in their shared breath. Vincent's features softened, a barely perceptible realization echoing through his eyes as if he understood for the first time that he was not simply a lost soul, but a man who could still choose his path. Yet, as Vincent began to formulate a response, another surge of urgency cracked through the air like static electricity, sending Emily's senses into overdrive. The train loomed, an unforgiving beast indifferent to their fragile moment of connection. "Now!" she shouted, adrenaline slicing through her hesitation. "We can't waste time, we move together." With decisive motion, she hoisted Vincent as she felt Mia's small hands grasp at her waist, anchoring them both. Fear had morphed into urgency, and somewhere amidst the chaos, clarity fueled her drive. Could they find safety beyond the oncoming terror? Was it possible that this fleeting moment would redefine all their futures? As they prepared to leap away from impending annihilation, it became clear, this gamble for Vincent's life held the seeds for something monumental, not just survival, but a reclamation of their own identities. The inequality of their divergent paths loomed large as they faced the path ahead, yet the reckoning that lay beyond the train's approach could alter more than one fate. What awaited them after the daring leap into the unknown? The burdens they carried threatened to shatter or elevate them at this defining moment, as they barreled into a future marked with questions and revelations. Emily's heart raced as her body reacted instinctively to the impending chaos. Time seemed to warp, stretching between the echoing screech of the train and the leap she and Vincent were ready to take. She could feel the weight of her choices past and present coalescing into that decisive moment. Fear was overshadowed by an urgent clarity. She had to guide Vincent into a new reality. As they surged forward, she caught sight of Mia. The girl's wide eyes conveyed a mixture of confusion and determination, a reflection of Emily's own internal struggle. How could she reconcile the impulsiveness of their actions with the gravity of the choices they faced? She needed to remain a pillar, showcasing strength that went beyond mere survival. It required transformation. "You can do this, Vincent," she shouted, her voice amplifying the sense of purpose behind their chaotic retreat. The sound of the train was a cacophony behind them, but the thudding rhythm of her heart became a steady metronome, synchronizing their fears into one beat. With one synchronized leap, they escaped the jaws of the train. Gravity pulled them down, the ground rose up to meet them. Emily landed first, rolling onto her side to absorb the shock, instinctively clutching Mia to her chest. Vincent followed suit, a brute force of muscle and desperation crashing beside them. Looking up, Emily noticed the train thundering past, billowing smoke and a furious roar that swept away their previous existence. Relief washed over her, mingled with an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. They were alive, but at what cost? "Are you okay, Mia?" Emily whispered, still holding her daughter close, desperate to shield her from the chaos that lingered. Mia nodded, yet in her eyes, Emily saw an explosion of emotions that mirrored her own, relief intertwined with the awareness of danger faced, and a dawning recognition of what they'd just done. Vincent, just inches away, struggled to his feet, brushing dirt from his clothes. The moment they had leaped had been more than an escape, it had summoned something raw and primal within him, a flicker of resilience. Maybe, just maybe, he could understand what Emily had been trying to help him realize. "Why did you do that?" he managed to ask, breathless and disoriented, staring into Emily's eyes as if searching for answers. "Because you're worth it," she replied, meaning every word. "And so is the chance for a different life." Her voice hinted at both innocence and a fierce determination that echoed deeper truths. Vincent's brow furrowed. Could he, a man tainted by his past, truly be given a new purpose? He had been shackled not just to the tracks of steel but to identities and choices that no longer served him. Emily's belief ignited a flicker in his chest, one that grew warmer as he considered the prospect of transformation. "Do you really mean that?" he asked, vulnerability lacing his tone. "I do," Emily reaffirmed. "But it's up to you to choose. To fight with me, for a life beyond what you know." As the dust settled around them, the reality of their situation began to crystallize. They were not merely survivors of an accident, they were emerging from the trauma with the potential to reshape their destinies. Each of them held fragments of hope that intertwined, but even as they stood on the precipice of new beginnings, darker shadows loomed ahead. Questions still hung in the air like a dense fog: what would happen next? Who would they face now that they were free from the literal and figurative tracks? Emily felt her muscles tense at the thought. Only now did she realize that their journey had only just begun. The real work of understanding, healing, and transformation lay in the choices they would make next. In that moment, a realization gripped her: she was not merely attempting to save Vincent. Together, they could uncover strength and resilience they had yet to discover within themselves. But as she turned to lead the way forward, a distant rumble stirred in the air, something unidentifiable, an approaching storm that hinted at the turmoil waiting beyond. Their escape. The question lingered in Emily's mind: would their courage be enough to face what was coming? Emily pushed herself up, heart still pounding, as the noise of the train faded into a low growl in the distance. She looked at the dirt and grit that clung to Vincent, and something shifted in her perspective. They were no longer merely running from something, they were moving toward possibility. The adrenaline thrumming in her veins fueled her resolve, and she decided this would not be just an escape. It would be the beginning of something transformative. "Mia, stay close," she instructed with calm authority, then turned to Vincent. "We need a plan. Where can we go from here?" It was a simple question, yet it hung heavy in the air. Vincent blinked, processing the urgency infused in her tone. Despite the chaotic leap, the uncertainty of their new direction overwhelmed him. He had never been the one to chart a course, life had always seemed to dictate his choices. But now, after witnessing Emily's bravery, a small ember of courage ignited within him. "Yes, maybe there's a place," his voice trailed off. He glanced toward the nearby alley, shadows curling around the corners. The sight stirred recollections of his past moments filled with both camaraderie and disappointment. As if sensing his hesitance, Emily took a step closer, her eyes locked onto his. "Focus on what you want. Not where you've been." The determination in her gaze sparked something primal within him, unearthing an instinct he thought long buried. "We could go to the old diner at the end of Fifth. If we can reach it, we can lay low and think things through." "Let us go," she replied, her voice filled with newfound authority. They trudged forward, the ground still damp from their escape, and as they moved, a sense of purpose began to crystallize around them. With every step, Emily absorbed the environment, meticulously weighing her surroundings, her senses sharp and alert. The train incident, while a monumental shift, was merely a chapter in the story she was poised to write. When they reached the diner, it loomed before them, a faded sign whispering nostalgia. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of frying bacon and brewing coffee. A few stragglers hunched over cups of steaming liquid, transient souls lost in their own worlds. As Emily settled into a booth with Mia, she felt a moment of calm wash over her. But as she breathed in the diner's familiar aroma, she saw Vincent still standing, his posture tense and unsure. His shoulders, usually too straight for comfort, now bore the weight of decisions yet to be made. "Come on, sit. Drink something, clear your head." Emily's voice drew him in, the tone like a soft anchor in the disquieting waters of his psyche. He slid into the booth and stared at his hands, the wrinkles in his palms like remnants of a life he vowed to leave behind. What if that moment back there was just a fluke? He asked, sincerity flickering in his eyes. "It wasn't he." "You jumped with me," Emily countered, her voice firm yet gentle. "You acted. That matters more than you think." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. With every bite and sip, the diner transformed from a mere haven to a ground zero for their revival. As they exchanged their thoughts, laying bare their vulnerabilities, Emily introduced an idea that had taken root in her mind. "Vincent, we can't just leave our pasts behind. We have to redefine what they mean to us." He processed her statement as if chewing over a complex concept. What did it mean to redefine one's past? It was a daunting notion, the shackles of his history gnawing at his sense of self. How? He finally managed, eyes turning earnest. Emily leaned closer, the spark of possibility reigniting between them. By facing it. Whatever it is that holds us back, we confront it together. Just then, a voice interrupted them. "Are you two ordering, or just plotting the overthrow of the establishment?" Emily glanced up, startled, to find a waitress eyeing them skeptically. In her gaze, she read the remnants of judgment and curiosity, a reflection of society's expectations. This moment crystallized an urgency she hadn't anticipated. They were not merely navigating their past, they were standing on the precipice of a new reality that required faith in each other. As Vincent opened his mouth to respond, a vibration pulsed in Emily's pocket. Her phone lit up, casting shadows across the table. She hesitated before checking it. What awaited them beyond the diner's safe realm? The message illuminated a terrible juxtaposition, a warning from someone who knew their truth, someone who would stop at nothing to drag them back into the chaos they had escaped. In that instant, the shadows in her mind deepened, and Emily understood, the fight for their newfound lives was about to commence, and every revelation would come at a cost. But resolute, she fixed her gaze back on Vincent. "No matter what comes next, we face it together." The question loomed between them like a ghost, would they? The real confrontation was on the horizon, one where their pasts would collide fiercely with their hopes. The waiter approached, and the final decisions loomed ahead, echoing Emily's seminal thought, what was waiting just beyond the walls of their fleeting refuge? Emily's heart thrummed in synchronization with the blaring urgency of her message. She glanced back at Vincent, who was still trying to process the weight of her revelation about confronting their shared past. The energy in the diner pulsed, each table a miniature universe, and she was now standing on the edge, ready to vault into the unknown. Vincent's gaze absorbed her intent, yet introspection clouded his expression. "What does it mean to confront our pasts?" He mused, the words coming out slower than he intended, as if they were stuck somewhere between his lips and the truth they represented. She straightened, feeling the solid weight of determination anchoring her posture. "It means we have to expose the lies we've told ourselves. You survived that moment back there because you've always had more courage than you believed." He shifted uneasily, wrestling with uncertainty. "But what if I delve into the darkness and don't like what I find?" The fear writhed behind his eyes, a sign of vulnerability that Emily found both profound and heartbreaking. Then we'll figure it out, Emily said, her tone steadier than she felt. It's not just about confronting the past, it's about reshaping its grip on us. As if fate had orchestrated this moment, Mia's innocent voice chimed in, breaking the tension. Can I have pancakes? The small interruption allowed laughter to slice through the weighty conversation. Vincent couldn't help but smile lightly. Pancakes are always a good start. Emily felt warmth bloom in her chest at the quick camaraderie. It was a small reminder that amidst chaos, joy still lingered. Yet the notification in her pocket recalled her to the present. With a slight hesitation, she opened the message, a terse alert from her brother, a distant figure entangled in their troubled past. He warned them that someone was watching. A chill surged down her spine. This was no longer just about their pasts, it was about survival. The stakes escalated, transforming their confrontations into a looming reality that demanded immediate action. Vincent, she said, lowering her voice, we need to strategize. If we're going to confront anything, we need to know who we're dealing with. He nodded, his expression sharpening with intensity. What about the diner? We can use it as a temporary base. Emily articulated a plan, her mind racing with possibilities, drawing the contours of a new reality they had begun to outline together. They could take turns watching the entrance, talking strategically with the waitress when the rush died down, and mapping their next moves. If we stay alert and keep our conversation low-key, we can figure out our next steps safely. As the waitress approached with a steaming pot of coffee, Emily instinctively turned to Vincent. Let me do the talking. She had to step up, resolve pushing her beyond her comfort zone. Vincent regarded her with an appreciative glare. Okay, but I'll be right here if you need backup. His support, despite his earlier hesitance, felt strengthening. The belief in each other started to weave a fabric thicker than fear, loosening the grip of doubt on his shoulders. They spent the next hour strategizing under the hum of muted conversation, piecing together their pasts like fragments of a shattered mirror, sharpening their narratives into something coherent, something armed. Emily found her confidence growing as she spoke, the shadows of her past reframing their roles as teachers instead of tyrants. Just as Mia finished her last syrupy pancake bite, the door swung open with a loud jingle. The atmosphere shifted palpably. A rush of cold air swept through, carrying an unforgiving energy. Emily's breath caught. A figure stepped inside, leaning against the doorframe like a storm cloud ready to pour. Their eyes darted across the diner, locking onto Emily for a split second before scanning the booths. Time seemed to stretch as she registered the unmistakable face, a vestige from her past, one she thought remained buried. Not now, she muttered under her breath, her heart racing anew. I know him, Vincent whispered, sensing the tremor in her voice. Emily's mind raced. This was the moment they were building toward. The echo of a confrontation loomed larger than life. Would they stand up together against their demons, or would the emotional tempest sweep them both away? More than ever, she understood, their next move would either become a rebirth or another shackle to their pasts. It was time to decide who they were going to be in the face of the storm. As she squared her shoulders and met Vincent's pleading gaze, the gravity of the moment settled like lead in their souls. They would either rise above the tides or be dragged under once more by their history. And the charge of that choice crackled in the air, demanding action. What awaited them at this crossroads was far beyond anything they had prepared for. Would they rise together or fall apart? The figure at the door began moving forward, each step echoing in Emily's mind like a warning bell. Her heart raced, and she felt the pressure of 1,000 memories swelling within her. The eyes that had met hers were a haunting reminder of everything she'd tried to camouflage from her life. Anxiety pulsed in her throat, and the air thickened with the weight of unspoken words. Stay calm, Vincent whispered, his presence anchoring her just enough to hold the edges of her resolve together. She glanced at Mia, who was blissfully absorbed in her half-finished pancake, unaware of the brewing storm within the diner. Emily didn't want her daughter to sense the tension crackling between the adults. Protectiveness surged through her, she had shielded Mia from the shadows of her past for too long. The stranger, a once familiar face from the folds of her history, now laced with darkness, was purposefully approaching their booth, as if gravity drew him to her. Memories flashed, the laughter once shared beneath the color of youth twisted into those stolen glances of complicity. The weight of regret became almost palpable. "Are you ready?" Vincent asked quietly as he leaned closer. His eyes were sharp, scanning the room, assessing their options. Emily swallowed hard, grappling with both a resurgence of fear and an unexpected spark of defiance. Maybe this confrontation could be an opportunity to reclaim her narrative. "We're not running away," she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. With daring, she stood to meet the man halfway. Each movement felt deliberate, as if she was choreographing a dance of confrontation rather than conflict. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice slicing through the hush that had fallen in the vicinity. "Emily," he smiled, but there was a chilling edge to it. "I've been looking for you. Why?" "Because it's time to finish what we started." The words hung in the air, dark, potent, swirling around them. Emily's breath quickened, and she caught a glimpse of Vincent's clenched fists beside her. They needed to keep their minds focused, free from chaos. This wasn't just emotional turbulence, it was the very pivot of their fate. "Finish what?" she spat, layers of anger peeling back the inhibition she clung to for protection. The figure stepped closer, casting a shadow that seeped into her confidence. "You know what I mean. Your brother's message was simply a warning. You're back in our territory now." The word territory reverberated, a stark reminder that not everyone had been eager to let the past rest. The stakes had never felt so high, nor the ramifications of the past so immediate. Vincent moved subtly closer, his body language shifting into a protective stance. Emily appreciated his silent strength, it stirred something deep within her, a realization of her own unrecognized grit. "Let's discuss this somewhere private," she suggested, an impulsive yet calculated proposition forming in her mind. Maybe she could gather insight, use the conversation to reclaim control rather than concede to fear. He chuckled, an ominous sound that resonated through the room. "You think you can play the victim and turn the tables?" "Cute." "Not the victim," she countered, her resolve tightening. "The victor." Each second felt like an eternity as tension coiled, preparing to unleash. The onlookers shifted in their seats, a swell of curiosity building among the diners. But Emily was no longer concerned with their gaze, her focus was solely on the impending confrontation, the necessary battle to rewrite the story she had been living. "Time's ticking, Emily," he pressed, ignoring her defiance as if anticipating despair. Vincent stepped in closer. "You don't get to dictate terms here anymore." At that moment, Emily felt a surge of clarity. A recognition blossomed deep within her. This was an opportunity to forge a new path, not just for her but for Vincent and Mia as well. They were at the intersection of fear and empowerment, and she grasped the delicate balance just within reach. The man before her could either push her down or push her forward. She had decided where to go. "Let's talk," Emily said, reinforcing her command. "But on my terms." As she regained her composure, she recognized that confronting him was only the beginning. A daunting journey lay ahead, fraught with challenges she hadn't prepared for. Yet, she was ready to step into the fray, to unearth the truth of her past while fighting for the future she deserved, and as they moved toward the exit, a new weight settled in the pit of her stomach. They were not just going to confront old ghosts, they were igniting a battle that could unravel everything they thought they understood about themselves. Would they emerge whole on the other side, or would the shadows consume them? With the door swinging shut behind them, she understood her path was riddled with unexpected turns. The confrontation had merely opened the floodgates to yet greater revelations, and she was about to plunge into the depths. The moment Emily stepped outside, the chill of the air hit her, but the adrenaline surging through her veins provided warmth. Vincent fell in step beside her, his presence a steady anchor while they traversed the parking lot toward the man waiting by his car, a sleek black sedan that seemed as ominous as its owner. "Are you sure about this?" Vincent's concern was palpable, but there was also a spark of unwavering faith in her. It reminded her of the countless times he had supported her without hesitation, further solidifying the resolve that grew within. Taking a calming breath, she turned to face him. I have to do this. For Mia. For myself. The determination coated her voice, resonating with an intensity that burned through her earlier fears. She was not just a victim of her past anymore, she was taking control, one step at a time. When they reached the car, the stranger leaned casually against the hood, a facade of ease masking the tension beneath. He examined Emily with an assessing gaze, as if appraising a piece of art. I see you've taken time to rethink your stance, he sneered. With every ounce of composure she had, Emily met his eyes head-on. This isn't about a change of heart. This is about setting the record straight. The smirk that tugged at his lips faltered slightly. Setting the record straight? That's a bold play, considering the last time we spoke, you were ready to run. Circumstances have changed, Emily replied, mindful of Vincent's presence at her side. Perhaps this was not merely about her past but their future. She had to keep the focus on what mattered, protecting Mia. Let us hear it then. He gestured to the back seat of the car, and though every instinct screamed at her to refuse the invitation, a sudden surge of defiance spurred her forward. If anything was to be reclaimed, it would be through facing the very core of her fears. With a quick nod from Vincent, they climbed into the vehicle. It felt like entering an arena, and a swift glint of determination ignited within Emily. First off, let us not play games. My brother is not your puppet, she stated firmly as the doors clicked shut behind them. His laughter echoed off the leather seats. Oh, but he was once. That's the beauty of loyalty, Emily. It's not easily forgotten. Loyalty. The word echoed strangely within her. It had been a crutch, twisted into a weapon for those who used it against her family. It doesn't have to define us anymore, she challenged. He shifted in his seat, clearly intrigued. What do you propose? Send a message? Break ties with your brother? You know they'll come for you. They already have, she countered, eyeing him with renewed strength. But I'm not afraid anymore. The fear you think holds me captive is crumbling. Vincent put his hand on her knee, a gesture both protective and encouraging. The warmth of his touch brought clarity. Perhaps this confrontation was revealing her hidden capabilities, her emerging strength. She was on the precipice of transformation, and she wouldn't waver. What if I told you there's a way out, a way for you and Mia? He offered slyly. His tone shifted, no longer predatory, it became almost alluring. What does that mean? You know what I want. Help me restore balance, and I can ensure your safety and your daughter's. The implication hung heavy in the air, and Emily's resolve wavered only briefly as shadows of her past loomed large, deep within. A battle raged. What was being asked of her? Would this compromise her values or open a door to a way forward? The moral dilemma wrapped around her thoughts like a vice, squeezing tighter as the seconds passed. No deal, she asserted, feeling the weight of Vincent's support bolster her stance. They had come too far to negotiate terms with the man who had haunted her dreams. A moment of intense silence stretched between them. The stranger's dark gaze sharpened, and Emily felt the air thicken with anticipation. But as words hung unsaid, a truth crystallized in the depths of her past. This confrontation could fracture her fears wide open, paving the way for a newfound freedom. Look, Emily, you may think you're standing strong, but it's time to realize who's in control, he insisted, leaning forward, predatory once more, but instead of faltering, Emily felt electric empowerment generate an undeniable force within her. No, she stated with newfound clarity. I decide my fate. Not you. As that determination hung between them, Emily prepared for the pushback to come, aware that she was rising to her own defense, a step she hadn't anticipated, one that would lay the foundation for an uncharted life. But what lies ahead would demand more than just courage. The game was changing, and Emily was ready to play. As the engine thrummed beneath them, she understood this was not merely a battle but a transition into uncharted territory, one that could unravel everything she thought she knew about loyalty, family, and ultimately, herself, would she truly embrace this new chapter, or would the ghosts of her past pull her under? Emily stood firm, the heat of determination surging through her as she faced the distracting echoes of her past. This was not merely a spontaneous confrontation, it was a decisive moment that dictated her future. The silhouette of the man across from her may have shaped her fears, but now, fueled by clarity, she carved out a new identity, one not defined by desperation but by choice. "Every string you think you control is nothing compared to the charge of my resolve," she declared, her voice steady. With each heartbeat, she felt the weight of her choices and their echoes compress into a singular truth. She was reclaiming not just her narrative but that of Vincent and Mia as well. For so long, fear had dictated the course of her life, but now it was becoming a distant memory, a remnant of a past she could reshape. As Vincent leaned closer, she caught the flicker of pride in his eyes, a glimmer that whispered of his own transformation as he recognized the power that surged through them both. The stranger's expression shifted slightly, the facade of confidence wavering. "You really believe that?" "It's adorable," he sneered, yet beneath that bravado was a flash of uncertainty that paved the way for boldness. Emily noticed it. She was kneeling at the precipice of something greater, a chance to confront not just him but every perception that had shackled them to their pasts. "Adorable has never felt so powerful," she shot back, drawing courage from every experience that had shaped her, every doubt she had conquered. "Let me clarify, I will not accept your version of freedom if it comes at the expense of my values or my family." In that exchange, a palpable shift occurred. It was more than just a negotiation of power, it was an articulation of rebirth. The chains of expectation began to fall away, revealing the vibrant potential that lay beneath. "What do you plan to do? Walk away from us, from the ties that bind?" He leaned back with a challenging flair, but Emily met his gaze without faltering. "Not at all. I plan to redefine those ties, not sever, but reshape. Mia deserves to grow beyond the darkness that highlighted our past. The choices I make now will dictate our future, and I refuse to align with chaos any longer." From her peripheral, she felt Vincent's support surge, a silent affirmation of their shifting dynamic. Here, their narratives intermingled. He had lived under the constraints of his identity, and together, they became champions of their redemption in tandem. "Move aside, Emily," the stranger commanded, frustration bleeding through his tone. "You forget your place." Emily took a step forward, trembling slightly, but her voice carried the weight of 1,000 convictions. "No. You will not intimidate me anymore. I decide where I stand, and I have chosen to reclaim the power you tried to strip away." The challenge hung heavy between them, yet Emily felt buoyed by a clarity she had rarely encountered. She glanced at Vincent, courage blossoming at his side, their mission crystallizing into one resolute aim, to navigate through the tumult together. "We get to decide who shapes our future. With you or without you," she declared, the fierce light of conviction burning bright. "It's not just a matter of choice, it's a rite of passage." There was a moment, just a beat, where the uncertainty flickered across the stranger's face. They had drawn the line, there would be no retreat. She felt something shift, the tide unmistakably turning. "Don't be foolish," he warned, but the threat held no substance anymore. Emily dared to smile, the realization washing over her: to be foolish is to associate with fear. "Foolishness is allowing you to dictate my reality. No more." With defined clarity, she reached for Vincent's hand, a gesture that encapsulated shared resilience, a newfound commitment to redefine not just their paths but also the existence of their relationship moving forward. "And this, right here," she told him, glancing toward the surreal atmosphere surrounding them, "is our moment of rebirth, not born from choices of others but from our very own." In the recesses of her mind, she visualized a life where accountability ran as deep as love, marking her territory with assurance. "Let us go," she said, gripping Vincent's hand tighter. The stranger's icy expression morphed into impatience, but Emily turned her focus forward, pushing beyond the remnants of fear that had anchored her. As they stepped out of the car, reality enveloped them once more. The chill of the outside air settled against her skin, yet within, a fire raged, a palpable thrill of potential unfurling beneath layers of history she had bravely confronted. In that instant, Emily knew she had reshaped not only her identity but the very essence of her family's narrative. There were risks ahead, shadows still lurking in possibilities, yet she recognized them clearly for what they were, mere specters of her past. The din of her life no longer defined by others had ceased to hold sway, and she could finally move forward, resolute in her new acknowledgement of strength. Together, she whispered to Vincent. We will navigate this future as we each define ourselves. With renewed confidence, they ventured into the unknown, leaving behind the weight of past shadows, embracing the magnitude of their choice. Freedom loomed not as an abstract endpoint but a living, breathing realization, one they would shape as they forged ahead. Their journey lay before them uncharted, ripe with potential, a testament to the power of shared transformation, born from the ashes of a tumultuous past. Now, to those witnessing Emily's transformation, let their journey serve as a reminder of the unfathomable strength found in confronting one's fears. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions or theories about the ending. The connections bring life to these experiences. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and rally around these powerful narratives. Don't wait even one more second to share and uplift those on a similar journey of transformation.